Yeah. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Overlook News on a Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern
Yeah,
Standard Time.
we didn't plan this. We just kind of like, this is spontaneous. Just kind of happens now.
It's
We
like,
just
all
plan
right,
random days now.
let's just do.
News is
Yeah, that
always
was a lot of
happening,
shit going
so
on.
news
Yeah,
happens. So why
it's a
not?
24/7 loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um.
Yeah. So
So,
okay.
welcome to So we got a lot of interesting topics that we're going to be talking about today.
We
We're
actually
going to be
really
first
do.
talking about Chipotle. We're going to be talking about how Chipotle. So Lansing, Michigan. I always love it when like Midwest stores, in particular, just decide to unionize because the unionization energy used to be so big there, and then fucking
Got squashed.
neoliberalism and it all got demolished and squashed and such. Talking about Lansing, Michigan, unionizing, and then we're going to be talking about this interesting Fast Recovery Act happening in California. Talk about the nuances of that bill that, well, it's not official yet because Gavin Newsom hasn't signed it yet. And, we never know with that guy what he's going to do. So,
Like he just vetoed that the sharing program. Didn't he? Or
did
like
he?
the like it was like it was some kind of like it was for people who had addiction, and it was I think and it was like a bill like that, and he vetoed it because it was gonna set a dangerous precedent for the rest of the country or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
California is funny about like that. They'll be like, "We're gonna do Medicare for all," and then like they'll get to like when it finally comes to the vote, they'll be like, "Nah."
They'll be like, we're going to do Medicare for all, but we're going to create all these different obstacles. We're going to create like 5 parliamentarians. And then, people are going to then vote on it, then and then maybe it'll pass. So, but then the person who's supposed to actually put the bill forward in the last minute's like, oh, never mind, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, that's California Medicare for all effort for you there. So we got Fast Recovery Act, and then we're going to be talking about how Mississippi in particular, they do not, in Jackson, Mississippi, they currently do not have any water available. More on that in a little bit. But that's obviously not a first when it comes to Flint, Michigan, parts in Texas that regularly they don't have access to water and they have to get bottled water that is then extremely rationed. And so, we're doing great as a country overall, I think. And so
hookworm in Alabama. People have the hook. Yeah, people have a hookworm in Alabama. Yeah. There's like an outbreak of meningitis in Florida going on that the CDC is trying to cover up. There's the infrastructure and health is just tippy top. So
yeah, absolutely.
So, I guess we're gonna move on to the first thing we're gonna go over is the Chipotle story. So I guess let's hear it, Andrew. I haven't actually been following this as much as you, so I am interested to see what's going on and get some.
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts on it and give some thoughts on mine.
So I think one of the things that actually makes this particularly pretty awesome is that one of the things that now employers have been doing, corporations have been doing now that the union movement has really grown, is they've started closing either stores who recently unionized or they've closed stores that have like shown signs that they had planned to unionize, right? Yeah. So as you can see here, executives previously shut down in Augusta, Maine location. That was the first store to form a union. And despite that, workers in Lansing, Michigan overcame this union busting to form the first ever Chipotle union. So I'm going to show this video here, and then I'm going to actually provide some additional information that I think is important to have for the context of this whole broader story.
When I walked back into that restaurant in January, after being gone for 2 years, I wanted to cry. It was an immediate, my heart just dropped. Nothing in that restaurant looked like it had been taken care of, including the crew.
I started noticing the issues in Chipotle pretty much right from the bat.
I started noticing issues pretty much day one. They kept insisting that we run with not quite the number of people that we should run with.
If there aren't enough people to run the store, we have to cut corners.
We have customers coming in and they're upset. Why are you so slow? Why is the food not right? The dangers of not being able to have enough people to run the store are a lot of shortcuts that are unsafe. We had people working injured.
I am interested in companies with magnificent sales and earnings like Chipotle.
Melissa, Chipotle out with beats on the top and bottom lines for Q1. Same-store sales also up 9%.
Chipotle shares sizzled in early trading Wednesday, jumping more than 10% to a record high.
Same old game.
Look, I think our secret weapon is our people and our culture.
The short staffing has led to injuries and exhaustion in the crew.
When we're operating at half crew or even a third of the crew, a lot of the people have to work double time at extra jobs. We end up getting ourselves spread thin, like a candle burning at both ends. It burns out pretty fast.
Everyone was overworked, everyone was burnt out, and everyone was doing the job of at least 2 full people.
We had complained in all of the appropriate ways, and it was time for us to say, we can't keep doing this.
If we weren't going to meet the minimum mandatory amount of people in order to work the job properly and effectively, we weren't going to open up the shop at all.
We weren't troublemakers. We were just asking to be cared for better.
Most of it was just them walking in and asking us questions.
So far has been a lot of signing paperwork and acknowledging our responsibilities.
But no concrete promises were made.
We still don't have the right training. We just want to be able to function.
We're asking for the bare minimum that Chipotle itself should be providing to begin with. Training and staffing your own restaurant is pretty par for the course for any business.
It benefits us, but also it benefits Chipotle and the customers too. When we realized that we could all stand up together and say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. You can't, run us around like this anymore. They listened. They deployed. This is the power of being a collective.
This little tiny Chipotle in Maine managed to make national news, and hopefully what we did can inspire people from all walks of life and from all sorts of companies to know that if you don't feel like you're being treated right by your company, you can do stuff about it. You absolutely have a voice, you absolutely have power, and you should use it.
That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like how they were
so
like,
they will be. Sorry, go ahead.
I like how they were just like, yeah. When we started actually telling them what we were gonna do, they started like actually responding, even though it might not have been the response in like the right response. However, but it's better than nothing, because it shows that they're actually giving a shit about it now.
Yeah. I love when they talked about, too, how management came down and that it was mostly just to get them to sign papers recognizing their responsibilities.
Wow.
It's like, what in the world?
But that's like so normal, though.
Mm-hmm. It's what they do all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 1,000, I think the average CEO to worker ratio is usually, I believe, 300 to 1, I think we hear, right? 350 to 1. And so just for context, right, that video said it was 1,131 ratio, right? Which that is just absurd. That is more than 3 times the average, which is absurd to begin with. 300 by 1 is absurd to begin with, right? And so I think I'm getting that one right. But
that's absurd.
Yeah. So I think another interesting thing to mention with this particular place is that with Lansing, Michigan, is that there was a person who had asked for a raise before they got unionized. He got fired, or I don't know what they got fired the next day. And I think one of the things that one of the workers actually said is that a unionized Chipotle that can guarantee and demand certain labor scheduling would result in a better experience for our guests. Okay. I think there's so much there, because part of the issue with a lot of these employees too is that they're not guaranteed consistent hours, right? They differ per week oftentimes in these service industries. So because of that uncertainty, it's kind of hard for them to get another job because they're expected to be available when they're asked to.
All the time.
Yeah. And so here they are. And that's why I think, yes, a living wage would be helpful, right? But so much of what gets it, even if you raise it to 15, which we're not even going to talk about how now that is so outdated and you can hardly afford to live anywhere with 15 an hour. But it doesn't change the fact that these corporations, these food, places like Chipotle, Starbucks, they have the power to every week arbitrarily assign you hours so that you don't know how to work around your schedule with it, right? And I think another interesting statistic to know is that 100,000 jobs Chipotle has for people around America, Canada, and Europe. As far as we know, as of today, Chipotle has not agreed to come to the bargaining table. And I don't know, Z, so I don't know if you remember, this was in the news several years ago, well, and a few years before that. In 2015 and 2017, there were several different Chipotle locations, neurovirus outbreaks. Do you remember that they literally had to close different stores?
People kept getting sick from that Chipotle all the time.
That's right. That's why I go. That's why I go to Moe's.
Welcome to Moe's.
I used to actually work at Moe's, which is not any better, but but at least there was no outbreak. I've not seen any outbreaks at Moe's that they're reporting because we don't know it, but yeah.
That's true. Is it true that if someone doesn't say welcome to Moe's to you when you come in, that they owe you like a free sandwich or something, or is that just a myth?
I would never heard that, but I know you have to say welcome to Moe's, and you have to be like, it's just so dehumanizing.
Okay. Right. Welcome to Moe's. Welcome.
Yeah.
Dang.
It sucks. I'm sorry for any Moe's workers that ever have to ever like come by the stream or watch the show.
I mean, they probably hate it too.
Yeah, they do. I know they do. There's no way. You get told to do some absurd shit in like the service industry where it's like, I remember being a cashier when I was like one of my first jobs, and they were just like, when a customer comes in, if they are at least 10 feet away from you, you need to like wave at them and like smile and say hello. And like 10 feet is so far, like a normal person 10 feet away from you is smiling and waving. You're going to be like, that is like weird. And I don't like need that. Like anybody's going to be like, that's weird.
Well, the thing too, it's like, at least from a perspective of the customer's perspective, if I came in and someone smiled and waved to me when I was 10 feet, the reason why I'm probably 10 feet away is because I'm trying to figure out what I want and I haven't made a commitment. So I want to actually process what I'm trying to get before interacting so I can talk to you and say it, right?
The whole interaction is such bullshit because like the way the company comes in, because that's another thing. Like you have to be there all the time, pretty much. You're at any job. You're always there, and then like you're pretty much giving up your free time because, like you said, they expect you to be on call. And if someone, especially, I don't even know how that is now there because there's a shortage. So for our people, and so it's just like, so what happens when like, and now like we were talking about a little bit earlier, doing the thing where they're calling quiet quitting, where they're like, you're not going above and beyond your job, and they're just and so they're already doing that. So that's a shame, and that was a shame tactic, and. So I don't understand like the whole process between customers, because it's not like the company gives a shit about what the customer thinks anyways, even though they say the customer's always right.
but and they don't improve on anything for the customer except for like aesthetics. Like it's such bullshit. Like it's meant to be like a frustrating experience because I guess it makes people buy more shit, but like it's really just so fucking like frustrating for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to the fucking neurovirus thing, like part of this is how it all intersects, right? You make it so that if people aren't working, they don't get paid. So people feel like when they're sick, even with neurovirus, they have to come in and work. And then what do? They infect the food, and then there's an outbreak, right? So I think that's just one example of how like labor laws affect everybody in a positive way.
And that should a government should like shut some shit like that down. But they're like private institute that literally is threatening like the citizens, like a neurovirus, like the responsibility of like labor. Well, that's the thing. Like labor is the government now. Like not labor, like the people, but like the CEOs and everything. They are the government. So they go in for a couple of years, change the law, then go back to like the being a CEO or vice versa. There's a revolving door between government and like corporations. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
Why do you think we had like 5 billionaires running in the Democratic primary?
They just bought some. Yeah, they just bought a seat like 2 weeks ago. Like all of the Goldman one and like it's just like
good point.
It's just like they buy seats and they'll come in, and especially when they think, and that's the thing. Like I'm writing this thing on fascies because I'm not gonna say that word right now because we want to like, and a lot of it is like the elusiveness of like the way America operates is the fact that we already have corporations that are like just telling the like state what to do and things like that, and like we don't realize that that's like a form of it, and it's wild. Like it's nothing like I don't even think like anything else is like there's nothing else like this in the world. The concentration of it either, like all the concentration of wealth that just goes back and forth from the government and the businesses because they are the same. They pretty much are the same thing. And that's it's just so dangerous right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So this chart, what do we got? Is this the CEO to worker ratio?
Yeah, I had it up in the background. And speaking of Chipotle, like I'm just glad that people are starting to finally be like, nah, I'm not taking it anymore. Like it's really awesome to see them. Hopefully we can find a Chipotle. We can probably get in contact with that store and probably talk to somebody. Hopefully
we definitely should. That would be great.
I'd like to do that because that makes me excited. Like the labor movement needs as much as help as possible because a strong labor movement is going to keep the fascists away. That's one of the first steps. It's not like a final solution or anything, no pun intended, but it is like a way to like subvert that kind of energy and stuff like that because people are fucking getting their needs met. So
yeah, well, and there's a reason too. I mean, I remember I was recently reading about Pinochet's rise in Chile, right? And one of the first targets was literally going after labor unions. Right, and
that's one of the first signs of a fascist government. Like they will come in, and that's what's happening in Ukraine right now. And a lot of people aren't like putting that two to two together. It's like, dude, they're shutting down labor unions. They're shutting down. They're workers' rights. Workers have no rights, and it all goes to business. It all goes to court, and it's what's crazy is that now, and you see it especially in times of crisis like we are now here, like remember, and you can tell the way it's changed because like we would have never seen billionaires just blatantly or like millionaires come out and just buy a seat or try to run for like government like 10 years ago like that. Like we saw like one or two people, but like seeing like Tom Steyer and then you see like Bloomberg come out, they're trying to lock down on capital like hard. Right. So it's like that in itself is showing that we're transitioning from like capitalism to something else because they're like they're literally like locking down, and that's something I didn't like put two together until I started like researching a bunch of this stuff. Very interesting. I keep
Well,
sending
and that was, I mean, and I think it was even exposed that this was behind the scenes what was going on. The reason why people like Bloomberg, Tom Steyer, Howard Schultz even was thinking of running. He kind of was running for a little bit, but then when he didn't get good feedback back, he kind of stepped away. But, you know, there's a social democrat that was running, right? We can talk about Bernie Sanders all day, but he's someone who at least facing wise, you know, and policy wise was to the left of the Democrats had seen in a long ass time. And that scared the shit out of him, right?
And
Bernie
and I
Sanders
think
was
that-
not even a socialist.
And you bringing that up, okay? So, and you bringing that up is even should show how right we have gone, because Bernie Sanders wasn't even calling for anything actually radical.
Right.
He was calling to catch up to the modernized world.
I remember, and I don't remember the specifics, but I remember seeing the reaction. If you remember when Bloomberg and Warren, and, you know, in that debate, it was the first debate that Bloomberg had. And then Warren was grilling him on his, you know, non-disclosure agreements over all the women that he like harassed and shit.
Yeah.
He obviously was not happy to hear that, but the most enraged he got was when Bernie said something along the lines of, would you bring your workers onto boards and have them have representation of decisions that are made in your organization? Something along the lines of that. And his reaction was like, hell no, what, you fucking socialist, right? He didn't say it like that way, but that was the angriest I saw him in a debate. The dude is being called a predator nonstop by Warren, rightfully so.
Just brushes it off.
But you get the most annoyed when you're like, hey, can your workers have some maybe democratic decisions of like what benefits they get and how they're treated in your workplace? Fuck you, Bernie.
It's wild. Like, that's a whole like another, and that's its own conversation. Like the neurosis of billionaires. Like, that's not normal. Like being like, I'm gonna collect $1 billion of these. Like it's like Lee Camp says, it's like, would you collect $1 million if your person had 1 billion cats? Like, would you be like, oh, that person's a normal person? It's like, no, that's not normal. Like that's weird. Like, and just like the fact that it just shows you that it's not only about money, it's the fact about people are under these people and they get off on that, and that's part of the fact, that's part of the, you know, they're royal, they're the elites, they're royalty, they feel as though they're gods and stuff like that. They don't live like us. Like, a lot of these people don't step foot in grocery stores or would even eat in their own restaurants that they own. So Howard Schultz like gets better coffee than like the coffee he sells. Just like fucking, you know, they're eating better burritos, and then the Chipotle guys eat a better burrito than fucking the ones he's selling. Like, so
just like yeah, just like these politicians who are like, we should privatize all healthcare and, like, you know, strip away the ACA, get like, oh, you know, this public healthcare as part of their benefits.
Yeah, exactly. They get $100,000 a year. That's without them being like you know, like some kind of piece of shit. And then
it's like
they get free.
Now,
And they get, because they voted to give themselves raises.
Yeah,
and then no problem there. But it's just ridiculous. And I think that we should switch. We should switch around the story. Like, I think the next story we should go into is, speaking of, since we're talking about workers and CEOs, I think we should transition into, let's go to the FAST Act, Recovery Act, since it'd be a logical. I think that'd be a logical transitioning point. And so California right now, we've had a big win for workers in so far. The lawmakers have voted to pass the Fast Recovery Act, and the Fast Recovery Act is going to give fast food workers a seat at the table by letting them form their own worker councils and letting them, be able to teach people and have actual labor standards in restaurants instead of, I don't know, fucking getting neuro diseases in the middle of their fucking burrito, and they want some guacamole and they end up with fucking encephalitis. So I think that this is a good step. And I think, the only thing that's been weird is the fact that people aren't sure how Gavin Newsom are going to fall, because he has not said anything about this. And you know, a lot of times when a politician is going to get behind something, usually they're pretty vocal and pretty like, you know, touring on it, being like smiling, kissing babies and shit, talking about how cool it's going to be. But like, he hasn't said anything. So that might be a little bit worrying, but I found a PDF because I went to the restaurant.org and I was able to get a PDF of the National Restaurant Association's version of what they say that Assembly Bill 257 is supposed to do. So what would it do for the fast food sector? And it says that the Fast Recovery Act will create a fast food sector council that includes 5 representatives from state agencies that handle labor, health, and workplace safety, 4 representatives of quick service workers and or labor unions, and 4 representatives of quick service employers and or franchises. Which that sounds good. Like, that's really good. Like, that's actually bringing people to the table who need to be brought to the table, and the people who are actually doing the work, not just people who are just like, you know, I'm just going to buy a stock here and there, like we just watched about the Chipotle guy. And the council would have complete authority over counter service restaurants with the ability to set regulations without consulting the California legislator, including rules concerning wages, training requirements, healthy and safety standards, and more. So pretty much this gives them the right to set the wages. And it also gives them the right to set the health standards and the training requirements by superseding the state. But it's giving it directly to the people who are doing it, pretty much. It's pretty much giving it's still, you know, it's because we're still under the system we're under, but it's still allowing the workers to still have a say and be able to negotiate it to the point where they don't have to worry about like going to court for it. So that's actually really good.
Yeah. I do have questions about it, right? So first of all, one of the things I noticed about this bill was that originally it was supposed to apply to corporations, food sector, you know, corporations that had 30 or less units. It's now 100 or less units, right? So again, it's better than nothing. But it's
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so one of the ones that I'm looking at right now is I believe it's Restaurant Dive. And so let me I can share it too, because this actually has some interesting additional information, I think. So all right. So chains in California with over 100 units nationally would be subject to regulations formulated by the council, which includes industry and labor representatives. So again, good. You know, it's applying obviously to the huge ones. So places, of course, like McDonald's, right? You know, Burger King, the household names that we all know are going to fall within it. I think another thing that's really interesting, though, is that the 10 representatives, so one is going to be from the state's Department of Industrial Relations, 2 representatives each of fast food franchisees, right? So those are basically the people who pay the franchisors to own the business like a small business owner, right? So they are kind of in the semi, you know, let's be real, they're kind of in the semi-ruling class. They're not like billionaires, but they're doing pretty well.
However, we do have to understand that these people do consider themselves part of that class.
Yes, so they're the overseers.
Exactly. So until they are convinced otherwise, like a lot of them, not every single owner is a piece of shit, but
yes,
until they're convinced otherwise, they usually do have allegiance with the ruling class.
And that's the representation that's going to be on it, right? So 2 fast food franchisees, 2 fast food franchisers. Okay. So those are the big guns. Those are the masters, right? And then fast food workers, right? And fast food worker advocates, and 1 representative of the governor's office of business and economic development. Okay. And so that depends on who the governor is, right? I don't know. Would you trust who Gavin Newsom picks for that?
No.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I'm not trying to shit all over this bill, right? It's better than nothing. I'm always trying to figure out, okay, especially if something like this has passed in this assembly, right? Without that much of an obstacle, you know, my pessimistic side is thinking, okay, what's going on with the bill that made it acceptable for some people to pass, right?
And I will say that he did reject the last version of the bill. This is the second version of the bill, and usually, like you said, it's been after it comes back a second time. It's usually been watered down to the taste of the people who are about to vote on it. So that is a very important point to make.
Yeah. So you're saying this is the later one?
Yeah, this is the second time.
It was updated. Yeah, it was updated
Exactly.
4 hours ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think another thing, and I think with the one that you were, I think the bill itself was saying that the 10 members would be appointed by the governor, right?
Yeah.
All 10. So, I mean, again, it's sort of like when the governor picks who's going to be in charge of the Department of Labor, right? Theoretically, that person is supposed to be on the side of the workers, but are they really, right? All the time, or in that case, right? So when I see workers advocates, right, that could go either way too at times. So I think it really, in terms of the effectiveness of this bill, it really, of course, depends on the people who are in power. And I don't know about you, maybe it's somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. I'm assuming the structure is going to be like in terms of voting, right? So a majority rule voting when it comes to setting the standards for wages. And so I think that's the thing too, just to consider, is that right now, as it is, it's kind of set up that it's like 50-50 between workers and owners in a sense. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, that's fine. No. What you're saying is fine. It's a step.
Yeah.
However, like you said, it is one of those things where, because you gotta look at it from the fact is that how did that pass? And just like you said, because it's usually not getting passed because it's like the most radical thing ever. It's usually getting passed because it's something that was agreed upon and there was a lot of compromise.
Right.
And speaking of that, I want to go over this. I want to show you this video and get your response to it, because literally, we just went over the fact that this, even though it's a good step, it's not the best thing that could ever happen for workers, And I want you to see how these newscasters are framing this, and you're going to hear some talking points that we usually hear, and it's just like, come on. You see, stop sharing that.
Being annoying.
Yeah, it's you're going to hear the usual conservative talking points that you hear from, both of the conservative parties that we both have. Okay, here we go. Can you hear this?
California's legislature passed a new bill yesterday that would create a government panel to set wages for an estimated 500,000 fast food workers in the state. It's known as the FAST Act, not about fast money. But it would establish a panel with members appointed by the governor and legislative leaders composed of workers, union reps, employers, and business advocates. Every time I intro your show, I say Tonight on Fast.
Yeah.
It's an abbreviation. So this.
I don't know who this guy is, but he doesn't even seem like he's that excited to be there.
He's on CNBC.
He doesn't seem like he's that happy to be there. He's like, every time I come in here,
the FAST Act, but it has nothing.
No, I understand that.
It's a lot
very
of
clever.
A lot of promos here. They would trying to
not funny.
Help. It's on 5 p.m. East Coast time, right? With a cadre of traders. That's amazing.
Learn how to banter.
Wages of up to $22. $22 for fast food workers. So get your fast food while these places.
Here it comes. Here you go. Here it comes.
They're still open. Future wage increases will be tied to the Consumer Price Index. Governor Gavin Newsom now has until September 30th to decide whether to sign or veto the bill. He hasn't taken a public stance, but his Department of Finance opposed an earlier version of it. Representatives from McDonald's, Yum Brands, and Chipotle have lobbied against the bill. They don't
I wonder why.
One anymore. They don't know about like supply and demand, and that you will have no supply once you have.
And the notion of government to private industry setting wages.
Right.
The notion of governments coming in and setting private wages, like they are, the fact that the government already sets private wages.
Well, they probably wish it didn't to begin with. If it was up to them, there'd be no minimum wage at all, and it'd be up to the companies. But
Just listen to the rest of this. This is ridiculous.
Brilliant.
And there's nobody, business advocates represent Chipotle and McDonald's and all the others.
If we could make everything not for profit, it might work.
Yeah.
But that's
Like,
hard
then it
to
would
do
be a
that.
different country.
And
Do
without the profit incentive, it's hard to really have competition and innovation
Right.
and
what competition?
accountability. ACA, the DMV, but
The DMV?
What are they talking about?
What are you talking? You're just saying
They're
words.
this bro, he's just saying acronyms now. Like he's not making any sense. Like
Communism.
first off, we just need to go off. Let's go off the first thing in this video. He says supply. He says supply and demand. They have no concept of supply and demand.
Wait, even before that, didn't he say that they were going to close? Like, get them before they close. Oh, great!
He was like, he said, "Get your fast food before they close."
Well,
It's
that's
like
one way to break up big companies that have 100 units or more. Pave the way for smaller businesses, have them close. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Thanks.
also $22. Come on. You know how much it costs to live on to live as one person in my state? $17, and I'm sure
17.
Yeah, I'm sure in Massachusetts.
Oh, it's like
fucking
30 something.
Exactly. So $22. You it's not even like the median of me or like both of ours together. You know, it's not even the median. So it's just like, and then he's just like, and then they go on to say like, I don't know if they know about economics, and this lady's like, the thought of the government coming in to control like what corporations do. It's like, you know,
Business advocates represent Chipotle and McDonald's.
Supply and demand, and that you will have no supply once you
And
have.
the notion of governments coming into private industry setting wages.
Brilliant.
And there's nobody, business advocates represent.
Who will represent the businesses? The businesses is who will represent them. I mean, they don't. It's the people who have the lawyers and the police, and they own the buildings, and they just kick the poor little businessman with all the bags of money out and say, "Hey, we're gonna bully you because you don't have any power." So,
you know, it's just amazing to me that it's even allowed for it. Like, it's not viewed as a conflict of interest for CNBC, which, by the way, literally exists to talk about the stock market, right? That is what they do. That is their primary thing to do. And so it should honestly be considered a conflict of interest for them to talk about something like this, because they blatantly represent the people who take out stocks, rich people, right? They're not even pretending. So it just amazes me that they even just are allowed to just give such a bullshit, that just their perspective on this.
This is straight up misinformation.
Yeah.
Chipotle and McDonald's and all the others.
I forgot that they were economists.
If we could make everything not for profit, it might work. But
if you can make everything for profit, it might not. It might work.
No.
Well, first off, yes, and second off, it's going to work. It would work regardless, because then maybe there'd be a little bit of balance. Like, this is what happens when people ask for crumbs. Like, even the little bit of dignity gets like shat on.
But that's
Like,
hard
then
to
it would be
do.
a
That
different country.
and
this
without
is-
the profit incentive, it's hard to really.
And this is
have competition and innovation and
As someone not being paid to be on a camera right now, they're being paid millions of dollars to be on a camera.
Yeah, I was going to say, this dude here that's talking, like, does he get into his own car and drive? Does he take public transportation? No, he probably has people escort him out, right? And for good reason, because if he were to say these things to people, like, people, I don't want to, get us in trouble on here, but like, people are not going to be happy with him.
That's almost hate speech.
Yeah, he's not gonna want to actually face the people who he's denigrating here.
That's classist as shit. Like, they're just like they're so disconnected. Like, if they had to live paycheck to paycheck, they literally would be feeling the same way. But the fact that their checks ride on the fact that people are in these positions, yeah, they're gonna fucking protect their bottom line too, because that's all they have is protecting that bottom line that just keeps the circle going, because that's how it goes. They want you to get back to work because that means they don't have to work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's egregious. But
it certainly is.
As we're coming into 20 minutes, another 20 minutes on this one. So you want to move on to the next story?
Yeah. The next story.
The next story is not good at all. Like, the next story is so Jackson, Mississippi, which actually has up until recently was actually pretty progressive a little bit. They had some very crazy initiatives they had voted in a while back, but as usual, anything good that lasts is usually like stomped out. But Jackson, Mississippi has some interesting history, this period. But part of history right now is that Jackson, Mississippi has had a flood the other day because there's been, I don't know, there was so much rain that happened in a bunch of states the other day. There was I heard something about 600% more rain than usual in some areas, which is they had a whole summer's worth of rain in like a day. So just to say that's not normal, that's climate change. No. And there's no way. There's no way. But
too many people ordering avocado toast.
Exactly. Millennials are doing this. It's the millennials doing this. So let's see. So I'm going to share these real fast. So we have, let's see. Oop. Breaking. The governor, Tate Reeves, says drinking water in Jackson, Mississippi's largest and capital city is failing. I didn't realize it was the capital. Officials cannot say when water will be reliably available. Tens of thousands of residents already with low pressure. So there's some key things that we need to know about this. Is that Jackson, Mississippi is 80% black, and just like Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi has this is not just because this flood has happened. This is not the first time the drinking water has been like told to be bad. We're gonna watch a video in a second about like this school that the teacher said that as long as he's known, they can't drink the water at the water fountain. As long as he's been at the school. So this is a systematic issue, and this is systematic racism at its most visible, because it's just like Chris had just talked about. You go to a black college and they have a swim team but no pool. But then you go down the street to a white college and they have 2 Olympic-sized pools. This is the kind of thing you see in infrastructure in disenfranchised communities. They don't like literally. They're boiling their water like they live in the woods or some shit like that. That's happening in a United States state, as people like to say. This, how does this happen here? Well, this happens every day here. Like this is abject poverty. This is and this is not the only state that this happens in. I mean, we have Kentucky's a state that's just like that too. Kentucky is like driving through the past. Like I have parts of my state, South Carolina, where it's like driving, especially in the South. But Alabama. There's hookworm there. Like that's supposed to be eliminated. It's wild. But there was another tweet that I'm gonna bring up, and I want to get some of your thoughts on this real fast while I'm looking for that tweet real fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think and one of the things I think and maybe this is one of the tweets that you're looking for, but they list out, right, parts of Texas, Flint, right, all of these that are majority black areas suddenly have water that they're unable to get. And one of the things I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they mentioned in one of the videos about this is that, yes, the Jackson government is passing, the government there is passing out water bottles. However, they are encouraging people, if they have the means, to buy their own water bottles, because which is just absurd on so many different levels, because they're trying to, and that's just saying to me, we might not have enough water to give to you, so please make sure you're poor enough to get free water that you are entitled to begin with.
You're in water.
Yeah.
Water,
Like-
the water wars are going to be a real thing, because this is egregious. And Al Jazeera Plus has this thread on Al Jazeera Plus is like really lines it out really good, and we're gonna go over it. So it's up to 180,000 people in Jackson, Mississippi may have little or no running water for an extended period, say officials. Water available now is not safe enough to even brush your teeth.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. The majority of Black cities' water system is chronically underfunded, but officials blame flood damage. This is like we were saying, this is not the first time. It says Jackson, Mississippi is 82% Black, has chronic water issues due to underfunded infrastructure. It asked Mississippi for $47 million for repairs last year, but got just 6% of that. Residents report raw sewage in the streets, and many already rely on bottled water, I'm pretty sure. And boiled water notice for the last month. And it says schools are teaching online after the water system collapsed, and is blamed on chronic funding. And we're going to go to that video. It says that this is not the first time that they've been online, even after the pandemic. Well, the pandemic that's over. So it says Mississippi is delivering bottled water to Jackson, but governor says if they can afford to buy their own, like we were saying, they can. This is a failed. Tell me how this is not a failed state. Like how we don't live in a failed state. Mm-hmm. When the government, you're having collapse on this kind of level, and the government's like, well, if you can buy your own water, no, the government, it needs to be bringing in water.
Yeah.
If this was Jeff Bezos, or like if this was a Jeff Bezos, say it was all the Bezos neighborhood,
and it got flooded, do you think they would be chilling, like, you know, telling them to buy their own? They would like empty a lake for them. It's gross.
Yeah.
Let's watch a little bit of this.
I'm driving to a town less than 15 miles south of downtown Dallas on a chilly winter morning.
What were you saying though?
Already, I've had more.
What you want to say before that?
It can wait till after the video. Yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'll
simple interactions
mute
with
it
water
at some point
in
so
the
we can
first
just like
hour
talk
of my
over it a little
day
bit, because there's
than any of Sand Branch's residents have had in the town's entire history, and that resonates with me.
How do you get water to your animals?
With the well, with the water hose. Come here, I'll show you.
I tour Vincent Offord's business to see how he manages to care for his cows, horses, and hogs in a place without running water.
So it pumps the water to the hose over there. It comes all over here. I bring the water all over here. That one hose do a whole deal water, horses and all. Water all everything.
Big Shine, as Vincent is known, is a son of Sand Branch who no longer lives here, but visits the unincorporated town several days a week. His property is one of the few with a working well.
I got water. Some people have to haul water. They come to me to get water for the animals, you know. And I let them have water, you know.
The problem with Sand Branch isn't only that it doesn't have a municipal water system. It is also that its groundwater is contaminated. But that doesn't stop Big Shine from trying to convince me to drink it. After all, he tells me,
I've been drinking this water for years, and there ain't nothing wrong with it.
You can't do that, man. Like, but does he really have a choice? Like, if you have no cash and you live in a place like this, do you think you can just be
Come on. It's not going to kill you.
No, that water is contaminated.
This water's not, if it's contaminated, I'll be dead right now.
Bro, that's not how that works.
No trash, no sewage. This is how drinking water flows.
Big Shine's gonna get contaminated.
Oh my
God! Its way into Sand Branch.
Because this going in here.
It's a carefully coordinated cycle happening every Saturday morning in the parking lot of the town's only church.
5 boxes, 5 water.
Concheska Howard Jones grew up here and loves this place so much, she visits it every weekend. Her grandfather pastored the church for 28 years.
It's pitiful to be so close to the heart of Dallas, like downtown Dallas, and not have running water. Like the people, if San Branch only had 2 people, they still have the same right to have water as Dallas that has 5 million people, right? So their lives don't matter because it's only 2 of them. Their rights don't matter because it's only 2 of them.
The Texas Water Development Board approved $450,000 for the town's water and wastewater projects in August 2020. But the money is a trickle of what the town needs to fully fund running water and sewage. The total price tag is $6.5 million. And even Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price, who has represented the area for 36 years, has said, "I was never convinced that you could make it work." Price declined our request for an interview.
San Branch is the underdog. Just waiting on that one person to believe in them and do what it takes.
So that's on Al Jazeera, everybody, and you can go check that out on their page. We have that down in the description, and if you want to go watch the rest of that video and give them some, show them some more love. But yeah, that is a whole messed up situation going on.
Yeah, yeah.
$450,000.
You know, it was interesting. I remember when I was in college, I took a class. It's like an intro to writing class, and this professor every class would actually begin by talking about how things have changed over the years, right? So he'd say, like, back in this day, this used to be, you didn't have this is what happened. And he actually mentioned, he said, in the late 70s, they started reintroducing bottled water that you pay for. And everybody was like, that's not gonna, like, that what are you talking about? Water is free. And he was like, well, people are getting dumber and dumber today. They're going to get bottled water. And of course they get bottled water. And now, of course, people are getting fucking bottled water out of necessity because their faucet water is not working. Right. But I think that just shows, like, this. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on the history, but if bottled water before the 70s, right, was not a regular thing that people got, then people's faucet water typically was not poisoned, I'm going to guess, right? Where they didn't need that. So that just shows how it's changed so much.
That's sad. That's depressing.
Yeah.
And you do hear that kind of thing all the time about the fact that, I don't know, like, you do see that before, especially before, like you said, before the Reagan era, like right before the Reagan era, or like right in the 70s, when at the 70s, like, we just went after McGovern and all that, and after that those losses with Dukakis and that kind of thing, and to Bush and then the 80s and all that shit, we were going leftward, and then it just got squashed so hard. Like, the corporate world is like, fuck no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think that's what, like, some of the most, that's what's, like, before we, like, wrap it up here, and I think that's one of the most, like, strenuous things, I guess, like, is the fact that you see them and they're like, they promote all this false happiness, but in this most sinister thing is these are the companies that are, like, keeping us like in from liberating ourselves and being able to make our own decisions. Like, they could still, like, these companies could, like, still be here, but being treated as people and being treated, like, above human life and above, like, nature and anything like that. It's wild that it's gotten like this out of control.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Field of Dreams?
No.
Okay. One of my favorite movies of all time.
I'll have to check it out.
Baseball movie. But you just reminded me, on a lighter note, when you were talking about how in, like, in the 70s and such, everything started shifting rightward. One of the things in this movie is how Kevin Costner, who is trying to get a hold of this radical writer from the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Who's now burnt out as kind of, living in solitude and such. And he's talking to him at a Fenway Park game about sort of his journey. And he basically says, you know, he was like, so why are you not kind of doing this stuff anymore? And then he basically said something along the lines of, well, then they elected Tricky Dick. And then everything fucking went down. I mean, he didn't say it just like, but that was kind of his reasoning, where it was like kind of burnt out after that happened, because it kind of lost hope in terms of any changes being made. So, yeah, that just on a lighter note kind of reminded me of that kind of part.
That's great.
Yeah.
Fuck Tricky Dick and all the Tricky Dicks in office.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But so I think we'll be back on Thursday. If we'll be doing another show with Noli D and Alex Vitali, for the author of The End of Policing. And hopefully we're going to get to ask him some questions about, you know, the modern police force and everything like that. But also I would like to go over, he's been doing a round about Trump and dismantling the FBI and the abolishment of like these institutions that have extra legal authority over the citizens of not only the United States, but the world sometimes. So we're going to be talking to him about that. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tune in. It should be good. And yeah, so cool.
All right, y'all be easy and take it easy.
Take it easy. Peace.